Good evening, friends. I can't believe that on this delicious Halloween evening, with a glorious blue moon right above us, we are celebrating the 10th and final episode of season 2, Status Single with Shree, an online digital chat show that I started to celebrate, to mainstream, and to basically announce the community of single women, which exists in India, and we are 74.1 million women strong today. When I started Status Single with Shree, the first season, I can't help but get nostalgic this evening. I I wanted it to be about things that I was desperate to talk about in the lockdown. So if you've been a loyal follower, and I know a lot of you have, and you've watched season 1, you know that we focused on a lot of important social issues. We spoke about single mothers during the lockdown because a lot of single mothers in our community faced economic difficulties, loss of jobs, pay cuts, promotions being stopped, self self-generated incomes, which were largely for entrepreneurs, were being curtailed. So we spoke about that. Then we spoke about women entrepreneurs and how were businesses surviving. We spoke about women artists during the lockdown. And then we decided that we're going to broaden the horizon of our show, make it as diverse and as inclusive as we could. And so we discussed a topic which is critical, I think, today to talk about toxic masculinity. From there, we went on, we spoke about mental health in the light of the unfortunate demise of Sushant Singh Rajput, which of course soon turned into a complete circus. And there too, I think, toxic masculinity had such a critical impact on the way the conversations and the witch hunt of Riya Chakravarti went and is still carrying on. We went on to businesses. How were industries which were reeling under economic crisis? How were they taking the lockdown? So we got experts from the field of retail, F&B, travel, hospitality, fashion to talk about what the lockdown really meant for business. And were we ever going to see an economic revival? Or was it really a period of gloom and doom for India? We've had so many wonderful, honest, seething, emotional, powerful moments on season 1. We ended season 1 with such a power packed finale where we had 3 of the country's top storytellers, a director, a well known filmmaker, then we had a musician, a satirist, and a theater director talk about. What the whole period meant in the lockdown. And for season 2, which we are concluding this evening with my dear friend and a single woman who I'm inspired by, and I'm so happy that she's agreed to be on the finale episode of Status Single with Shree season 2, Tannishtha Chatterje. So, Tanishta, before you came on, I was just biding time and I was telling my audience that what Status Single with Shri meant to me, because today, as I said, it's a beautiful, delicious blue moon said to be extremely powerful in terms of energy. If you believe in, if you're spiritual, and I am. And when I started, season 2, because we had focused on issues in season 1 and we had panel discussions where every panel there were 4 or 5 interesting people. For season 2, I wanted to make it more personal, and I just wanted to focus on iconic single women. And what a 10 episode season 2 we've had, absolute icons like Kamla Bhasin ji, we've had Malika Sarabhai, Dr. Malika Sarabhai. We've had diversity and inclusion expert and leader Srila Dasgupta. We've had Anjali Bhushan, who heads content at Viacom Studio. We've had Vinta Nanda, director, editor, screenplay writer. So many. We've had actor Mona Ambigaonkar. We've had, of course, you now, to sort of, I think, sum it up. And Tanishta, you need no introduction. I'm sure, anything I say is just going to sound like empty sort of flattery and just, so I'm not, so I'm not going to do the boring introduction. I first met Tanishta, when she dropped in very briefly to say hello to her friend Adil Hussain.
That
When
you
we were
called.
sitting, yes,
Yes.
when we were sitting and
Yes.
having dinner at the Park Hotel in Calcutta after my book launch of my second book, Sita's Curse. Thereafter,
Yes.
I sort of re-met Tanishta once again because my friend Leena Yadav was directing Parched, and Tanishta played a pivotal role in what I think was a path-breaking film as well, Parched, which embraced female autonomy, female sexuality, women's, just the power of a woman or women owning their voice, owning their bodies, owning their choices. And that's when I was reintroduced to Tanishta through that wonderful film. And then I started watching a lot of Tanishta's films, and I was so surprised that here was an actor who had, who came, whose origins were theater, NSD, the prestigious National School of Drama. And, you was someone who had actually traversed both worlds. So you had, done commercial Hindi films, and you had then done what we today very fashionably call noir cinema. And then, bang, last year you went and directed a film, which was so critically appreciated with one of my favorite actors, Nawazuddin. Rome May. I hope it has a commercial release, or at least it releases on an OTT platform, so that people like us who love your work can watch you, don the double hat of director and actor. So Tanishta, I'm going to do firstly welcome to the show. Thank you for being a part
Thank
of it.
you. Thank you for inviting me for this adda. We are Bengali. We love adda. So let's just have some fun in the next 1.5 hours. A proper adda that I'm looking forward to.
Yes. So, Tanishta, I'm going to sort of rewind a little bit and go back to your childhood. And, what was very interesting is, I'm sure, I had some questions coming in from our viewers before the show. And everybody has watched actually that Kapil Sharma show where you stage the walkout. Everybody, I think,
No, it was not Kapil Sharma show.
what
Kapil
show
Sharma
was
show. I
it?
never walked out.
No, sorry,
It
what show
was
was that?
it was comedy nights.
Comedy night.
It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
Kapil, yeah. It was Bharti and somebody else's show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
The
it was
comedy
Colors.
night.
Yes, Kapil
Yeah,
Sharma's show. Brett and I went. We had a great time, and we
yeah,
really had a blast. He was wonderful, actually.
yeah.
It's
So
very
every
mainstream, but it was really wonderful. There was
yeah.
nothing sort of offensive, over the top in his show at all.
So my bad. I'm cross-referencing comedy nights because I want to know um, about your life, your early life in Delhi, and you going into the National School of Drama, which was very different from the avatar that we see it now. Because unfortunately, now most of our theater, schools and our FTIs have become really, they've become sort of under the government, so to speak, quote unquote. So tell us about your interest in being an actor, and whether growing up, I know you and I have had this adda already on the phone a little bit, but for our listeners, when you were growing up as a dark complexioned young woman, like for instance, I was fat shamed in school. I was much larger than I am now, and I had buck teeth and a mustache. And my childhood was like I kind of hid. I wouldn't participate in sports because I was so scared of being body shamed and laughed at by my classmates. Did you face any of that? Tell us about your childhood and NSD and how glorious it would have been back in your time.
I never faced anything like that, which is why it was surprising for me that in 2016, and suddenly I come to this show which has such a huge following. is so regressive, so punched down in its humor, and I couldn't believe this is what I mean. Probably I was just lucky to be surrounded with people who were far more evolved. But after I walked out of that show and the kind of reaction that it generated and the kind of support that I got from a lot of
Yeah.
people around, I realized that how important and crucial this issue still is, because I actually was living in a cocoon where I did not know, just surrounded by people who are evolved. Probably it didn't
Yeah.
really matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've always had male attention also, like right from my teenage years, so never really sort of felt that that's detrimental to any sort of my growth or my confidence and anything like that.
Hmm.
No.
Yeah, you said that to me too, that I grew up in a bubble. You mentioned that word to me.
Yes, so it
Yeah.
almost seemed like a bubble. I was like, whoa, what? Are you
Hmm.
serious? Like
And in the
2016? Are we
21st
are
century.
we- Yes, which world is this? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I think a lot of things are hitting us even right now, which probably was there underlying, currents of tension, violence, everything, but we didn't grow up in that.
Yeah.
I did not grow up in that, so
Yeah.
it was probably a bubble. Yes, I mean a beautiful bubble. I am very thankful and happy to my parents, who sort of, my sister's fair and tall and very beautiful,
Hmm.
beautiful in the the
Conventional.
conventional sense, my younger sister. But my parents are extremely evolved. I mean, these are things that I realize now, that I didn't grow up with any complex. My sister did not grow up with any overhand, like, because when I read certain books, stories, novels of people writing, oh, she was the beautiful one, I was this one. I'm like, dude, we never had that. I
Yeah.
loved her and she loved me. There was absolutely no sibling rivalry for any of those reasons. I actually loved it when she walked into, a room full of my friends who said, "Whoa, your sister's growing hot." I
Hmm.
mean, I appreciated that. So
Hmm.
there was nothing. I didn't grow up with any of those ideas. I mean, and she
Complex.
wasn't beautiful just because she was tall and fair. She was gorgeous. She is
Yeah.
still gorgeous. So it's I don't know. So that evening was like really strange, and reality hit.
Yeah.
Really? India's still like this?
Yeah.
Because I thought, like, the Fair and Lovely ads and everything, it's, oh my God, that's just a section of the society. It's not in educated urban, but you realize a lot of things, like you said, different kinds of body shaming, whether you have
Yeah.
straight hair or curly hair, whether you're tall or short, or you're chubby or you're slim. Like, everything has a judgment, and
Yeah.
that judgment is definitely a lot more in terms of physical appearances,
Hmm.
a lot heavier on women than it is
Hmm.
on men.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think the whole metrosexual man, and also, like, men also have that pressure.
Hmm.
It's not that men don't have pressures of good looks,
Hmm.
and what is termed as good looks,
Hmm.
but of course far less than what women go through.
Hmm.
And but when we were growing up, I thought things had really sort of changed. It's all about personality. It's about what you've achieved in life and your qualities and your talents. And my school and my parents and the environment that I grew up in was absolutely 100% like that, which actually made me also choose an unconventional career path,
Yeah.
because I was studying chemistry, and I was a very good student. And so, for my parents to actually give me that support and say, hey, cool, you want to do this, go ahead and do this. I mean, it's not that they didn't have apprehensions, of course.
Hmm.
They had apprehensions because they were progressive enough to think that just because I'm a woman doesn't mean that I can do anything and just get married.
Hmm.
Right. So they knew that they were progressive enough to think that her life is what is important and what she does is important, and therefore those apprehensions were there, that okay, drama, like, really, like, what's the future? And my father's an engineer, my mother used to teach, she was in academics, and then she became a homemaker. So they had absolutely no clue, in Delhi and all the other places we traveled. So of course there were apprehensions, but there was never a very fierce resistance to anything that I wanted to do. And, I followed a natural path.
Hmm.
Having said all that, it's not that right from my childhood I thought I wanted to be an actor.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that happened to me by accident.
Hmm.
I just went to a workshop while I was still studying chemistry in Delhi University in National School of Drama, and I enjoyed it so much. And that was also a place where a lot of the professors of NSD were sort of conducting that workshop and told me that, hey, you belong to the stage, you're a performer, you sing, you dance, you can act, you're a performer.
Right.
So I really had a lot of fun, and I thought, there was this place which was so appreciating the qualities that I had nurtured and my mother had nurtured for so many years, especially music. So I had so much fun, and I suddenly decided, hey, let me just go to drama school and learn something there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how was it in NSU? Tell us about NSU, because I think so many actors we see today doing so well, in uh, Bollywood or the Hindi film industry come from NSD. Be it Nawazuddin, be it my friend Adil Hussain. So tell us about your work at NSD. What I think at NSD, my experience is dealing with the students of NSD, because as you know, Cut, my book was performed as a play last year at
Yeah,
NSD.
you told me. Yes.
So,
Yes.
when I dealt with those students and the way at least Abhilash was sort of training them, I just felt that more than learning, they're unlearning. They're breaking down. They've been given the power to destroy structure and notions and stereotypes. And to me, I told myself, shit, yeah, how will I ever apply for NSB? You know, I mean, I was so inspired by that charged environment at NSB. In Delhi, to find that, it's just a cocoon of creativity.
Absolutely. I mean, NSD again is a beautiful bubble
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
just it gives you this whole. I mean, but education should be like that. Education cannot sort of bang students and say, "Oh, the reality outside is very different. You're never going to get to explore your creativity in this utmost free space like you're getting to do it here."
yeah.
Because there's so many commercial parameters when you come out and you start working. So
Hmm.
it takes a little while after you come out of NSD to sort of reorient yourself and think that, oh my God, okay, the real world is this.
Hmm.
But it's a beautiful bubble where it gives you absolute freedom to just explore and expand, learn so much, not only because of the teachers and the course and the creative push that you get and the creative exposure, international creative exposure that you get, but it's also because it has this beautiful idea of bringing in people from all walks of life,
Yeah.
like students, in terms of age, in terms of social backgrounds,
Hmm.
in terms of language and culture. It's such a wonderful mixture, and it's a very thought out process of selection. So
Hmm.
we can't have like all 20 students from Delhi with similar backgrounds.
Hmm.
If there is one student from Delhi of a particular social background, then there would be another student who will come from Manipur, another from
Yeah.
Kerala, who probably has never heard how to speak Hindi, who only knows Malayalam and so rooted in a village in, and even in terms of age, there are students who are just 18, 20 years old, and then there are students who are 30 years old.
Correct.
It's in the same class,
Yeah. Hmm.
you have people who have so much experience in life, because when you're a 19, 20-year old, a 30-year-old is a different
Hmm. She.
experience altogether. Yeah, I had
Yeah.
that, like, because I was this youngster, like with the sparkle and wonder in my eyes. Whoever was saying it, I was absorbing everything.
Yeah.
And there were so many students in my class who were like 10, 12 years older than me,
Right.
with so much experience.
Yeah.
There was a student in my class who spent 2 years in prison.
Oh,
So
wow.
this kind of diversity, and many people who had never traveled outside their village, who in those 3 years they started slowly learning another language apart from the language that they spoke. So
Yeah,
this sort of this sort of intimate communication with various personalities and people who come from such diverse backgrounds,
yeah.
that's actually the real idea of India as well.
That
It's
is,
so
that is,
beautiful.
that is. Yeah, yeah,
it it was the most beautiful bubble. I mean, I still remember, and I wish, I just feel that that's such a beautiful time in our lives.
Hmm.
I wish it always remained like that for the rest of my life.
But Tanishta, there was one thought that struck me when I watched my book being performed as a play, and thereafter, that there were so many students in that class of NSD. And I thought to myself, where do these people go after that? Because such a minuscule percentage of that class we actually see on the silver screen. Of course, there are
Right.
some who do not want to get into mainstream cinema. They're happy doing theater, or they get into academics, or they get or they do other things associated with the performing arts. Light design and sound design. Not everybody wants to become an actor or a director, but from
Right.
the group that aspires to become an actor or a director, how many make it? So
So the thing is, a lot of people actually go back to their regions. Like a lot of my classmates went back to their regions, and they constantly do theater there.
right,
They do theater, like you named Avilash. There are many
yeah,
people like that. Adil also for many years actually taught and did theater.
yeah,
And like many people don't even have aspirations to actually come to Bombay and make it in films, and they don't
yeah,
want to be
yeah,
filmmakers or film directors. And they are doing incredibly well, and they're contributing in a lot in the manner that they are doing. So
right,
just because you don't hear of them doesn't mean that they are not doing substantial work in the field of work that they
correct,
are doing.
correct,
Right. So the thing is that that's a separate thing, that society and capitalism has turned society towards a direction where anyone who's contributing largely to a bigger sort of capitalist
yeah,
output, economic output, gets to be known and seen more.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but that doesn't mean that other people don't have their relevance and they're not like contributing
Absolutely,
in their
absolutely,
manner. So it's and it's not that that a lot of people don't make it. There are, of course, that's also true, but it's also true that a lot of people do not ever come, and that's not their aspiration right from the beginning.
correct, correct,
They,
correct,
that's not what they ever wanted to do.
right. So what?
Just give me one
Obviously,
sec. Just give me
yeah,
one sec.
yeah, yeah.
কি হয়েছে সোনা?
So Tanishta's got a little baby daughter called Radhika, and Radhika's birthday is on Monday. So Tanishta had requested right at the onset of the show that she'll need a couple of minutes to give Radhika her dinner. So please bear with the sight of the empty chair, a busy single mother. And but I think it's so interesting when we're talking about young aspirants into Bollywood, because I think recently Bollywood has been the subject of so much of television debate, chai pe charcha, of course, social media banter, and so much of it has been on the pressure on newcomers, and the struggle, the grind. So, Tanishta, I was just saying that recently Bollywood has been the eye of the storm, and we are not going to talk about Sushant, the late Sushant Singh Rajput, but, it is so difficult to survive any film industry. I'm not going to say Bollywood because it's equally tough in Collywood, in Hollywood, just about anywhere. I think creative professions in India, especially if you don't come from a background which is, filmy, or, like I don't come from a background of writers. Yeah, my family is I mean, they're into the arts just like any average Bengali family, but nobody in my family is a full-time writer. Everybody's done a job. So it's been like they've had very safe professions. So, I wanted to ask you, Tanishta, after NSD, take us down your journey, because you started at a time when, like you were telling me on our private chat, that at that time there was only Hindi films, like the commercial Hindi films, and there was Saas Bahu television. That's the time you actually forayed into Bombay, so
Yes.
if you could just tell us about that phase, and what are the changes that you see now, because you've really traveled so much time.
Yeah, I think it's quite wonderful for young actors and writers and directors and creative people because the opportunities have really opened up. There's a
Yeah.
lot more opportunity than they used to be in 2005, 2006 when I first came here and I began. It was far tougher because there
Yeah.
was mainstream Bollywood and there was mainstream television.
Hmm.
And after getting this amazing in-depth education in acting and theater and international exposure and everything from National School of Drama, it kind of never fitted in either of them.
Hmm.
So it was really tough to figure, what are the choices.
Hmm.
um, and luckily I got some really nice international projects in the principal roles with
Hmm.
very good directors, with very good production companies abroad, and it kind of opened my doors, and then started sort of doing some very interesting films here, and then slowly from 2010 onwards it slowly started changing.
Hmm.
The likes of Anurag Kashyap and Tigmanshu Dhulia, and lot of like alternate sort of alternate but still making mainstream films. But these
Hmm.
voices started coming in, and it became much easier for actors to actually tap and access those kind of films.
Hmm.
But when I first came, it wasn't really there.
So
So it
when
was.
you were coming through, uh, we always we always deny the casting couch. I used to find this really funny as a lifestyle editor, that whenever I spoke to an actor and I asked them to recount their experiences, everybody would
Yeah.
list the evils of Bollywood, but then would put a disclaimer. It never happened to me. I didn't see it. But I think, when we've had the Me Too movement now, yeah,
Yes.
when of course now we've had the Me Too movement, and on this show we had Vinta Nanda speaking brazenly
Yes.
about her almost, I think, 3 decade long struggle with sexual abuse, and then coming out about it. Because you've straddled the world of international cinema and Bollywood, or the Hindi film industry, how is it for a non-mainstream actress? Because actresses, I think, immediately get boxed. Oh, she's a big budget film actress, she's a
Right.
lead, or she's great in comedy. But I think
Right.
the diversity of your portfolio, Tanishta, prompts me to ask you this question, that how was it for a woman who was not conventional looking? And I'm reiterating on this because of the stereotypes that exist. It's not my own bias, but I
Right.
just
Right.
feel that we have this notion of the perfect Hindi film heroine, gori chitti, very, like, pretty, prim and proper, and here you were, somebody who's so different in so many ways, even your acting, your the kind of roles that you accepted even at the start of your career. Was that always a tightrope balance for you, or was it just something that came naturally?
To be honest, right, in the beginning, there was no choice because, like you very rightly said, I don't come from a film background or a film
Yeah.
family or anything. So I was auditioning for some of these films and I was getting those parts.
Hmm.
And they were obviously not the mainstream Bollywood. Like you again said, that I don't fit that bill, right? So it was either international films or like some interesting independent films here. There was obviously stereotyping in the beginning,
Hmm.
and then once I had a little bit of name, I wanted to break that stereotyping, and
Yeah.
I would actually put forward my request to the directors that, "Oh, can I just try something else? Like that would really excite me."
Hmm.
Uh, so I think, like I did a film called Rough Book with Anand
Yeah.
Mahadevan once, and he had narrated the script to me, and he had initially said that, oh, I want you to play the school principal, and it's a story of a guy who's a physics teacher, and his struggles of this coaching class and this that. I said, why is it that because he's a physics teacher it has to be a guy? Why can't she be the physics teacher?
Yeah.
He looked at me like this and he said, Tan, it's done. And I went to New York for a month to visit my sister at the time. I came back and he had changed the script and he said, Tan, you're the
Wow.
physics teacher. Are you doing it?
Wow.
I'm like, great, wow. So you
Yeah.
have to, I think, speak it out to the universe that, listen, I want to play something else.
Mm.
You have to go out there a little. I mean, not sometimes, I mean, so I did those things. I wanted to play different parts. I mean, otherwise it's boring. I mean, I get bored very easily
Mm.
with everything in life. So so I mean, to be always in the move, to be creating new things, and I take huge risks just because I don't want it to be monotonous and boring.
Mm.
I
Mm.
risk things which are absolutely there, and it can be very smooth, and I'm like, I don't want this smoothness because it's boring.
Mm.
So I will again plunge into a rough water because I'm tired of that monotony.
Right. So, this is
And
what I'm
sometimes you
saying.
fail. Yeah, and sometimes you fail, and sometimes you gain, and you learn, and sometimes you surprise yourself that, oh wow, I could do this.
Yeah. So, when I have my phone right now in front of me, and when I look at your filmography, your performance in the German film, for instance, Shadows of Time, which was, critically, it was really highly acclaimed, right? And it traveled to so many international film festivals, including Toronto, Berlin. And after that was the Indo-French production Hava Aane De, which was directed by Partho Sengupta, which premiered at Berlin International Film Festival. It won the Best Film Award at Durban International Film Festival. After that, you worked in the British film Brick Lane, which once again sort of brought you so much of international recognition, and you were sort of nominated for British Independent Film Awards along with Anne Hathaway, Judi Dench. Then you do something like Bhopal, Prayer for Rain, with Martin Sheen. Then you do, so you've almost gained or earned, the right word is earned, the epithet of princess of parallel cinema. So, I'm tempted to push the envelope a little bit, Tanishta, and ask you that do you think that what really, I mean, really today we make such a big noise about a Deepika, having a bit role in some movie, or Priyanka, of course, doing that whole, Quantico, and, she's doing very well now. Or we make such a hoo-ha-ha about mainstream Bollywood actresses, like say Aishwarya's little role in Pink Panther was made into such a big thing in the press. But when I see your filmography, I mean, you've even done Lucy Liu's film Meena, which
Right.
was based on the book Half the Sky, which is one of my favorite books. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I'm thinking to myself that you actually pushed the envelope and you
Hmm.
shattered the glass ceiling long back before it became fashionable, you know?
Yeah, I think, yeah. When I was actually traveling with Shadows of Time, with Brick Lane, with a lot of those films, it was like, really only me. And
Yeah,
even in India, no one actually knew. Mainstream people didn't know about film festivals.
yeah.
I remember when Devdas was screened in Cannes, that people got to know about Cannes. I was like, really, like, okay, I mean, for an Indian audience, I can understand. But even Indian media, like, they
Yeah,
started,
even
yes, they didn't really give importance to a Berlin or a Venice or a Cannes Film Festival. I mean, they didn't know, or Toronto, Busan. So unless Bollywood goes to any of these places, the relevance does not happen
mm,
in the Indian media. But that's also because media is again ruled by capitalist economy. So anything that is readership has to have some eyeballs, and the eyeballs come from our pop culture, and our pop culture is Bollywood.
Hmm.
So we are in this niche sort of world where we are traversing, international, being artists, it is a niche world,
Hmm.
and it can only become mainstream through pop culture,
Hmm.
because the media caters to numbers. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't blame them for that, because that's the nature. It's a much larger sort of economic debate, that
Hmm.
if you look at everything in today's world, like how many public intellectuals do you have?
Yeah. We were talking about this. Yeah.
Yes. So there was a time in history where a Freud or an Einstein or a Karl Marx, they were public intellectuals. Like normal people would know their names and would know what they've actually done.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's not true anymore.
Yeah.
So writers, philosophers, poets, scientists, economists, they are only known in a section of society.
Hmm.
It's pop culture that is actually that the mainstream sort of promotes, propagates, and therefore, you look at leaderships also all over the world
Hmm.
is catering to a very mainstream discourse.
Yeah. Yeah.
You won't hear speeches by our leaders all across the world,
Hmm.
which were, if you hear a Martin Luther King's speech now, or a
Hmm.
Abraham Lincoln, or any of our, or Jawaharlal Nehru or Mahatma Gandhi's speech,
Hmm.
it was they were so rooted in education. There were
Hmm.
things and quotes to learn from. But
Yeah.
across the board, if you hear speeches of our leaders, like across the world, across the globe, it is very mainstream. So everybody is catering to what is called like the basic, and people who do not have access to so much education, and to reach that sort of crowd.
Yeah.
And therefore, everything is more mainstream and more about pop culture.
Right. Do you think, Tanishta, you get typecast in the Hindi film industry as
Yeah, you do.
being, no, that's fine. Is that your little one?
I'll give it to you later. Okay, go and read your book.
So I'm saying that, do you feel that, in the Hindi film industry, if you're doing roles which are strong, you're a strong woman, do you think that becomes somewhere like a disqualification? Like, I'll give you my own example. For instance, I don't write commercial fiction, you know.
Right. Right.
Um, but at the same time, I think my books, it's hard to slot me as a writer because every book has been different. I've done an erotica, I've done a non-fiction on single women, I've written a play, I've finished an intergenerational family saga, I'm going to write my memoir. So you can't say she's an erotica writer. You can't say she's a non-fiction writer. You can't say she's a romance writer. So I think, the world is so used to boxing artists, to sell them. It's again a byproduct of capitalism. Do you
Yes.
think
Yes.
that has been a sort of a disadvantage for you in India, while the same thing has really seen you soar overseas? I mean, even the Canadian film Siddharth, which was an official selection at the Venice Film Festival, the 2013 Toronto International Festival, Angry Indian Goddesses, Parched. I mean, I could go on. But
Right.
how is it that we see less of you in India in projects which are quote unquote again more mainstream? Do you think they're still looking for that pretty fair, docile sort of heroine?
I think not anymore. I think now things have really changed, because there are all younger, interesting directors who are experimenting, doing all kinds of things, and it was just that I started out a little earlier than this change came, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I feel that the younger actors are far luckier in that sense, that it is
right,
not about face anymore. It's really about the character, and you get cast as you fit the role and you suit the role, of course. But there's one thing that for women, this is also true all over the world, less so internationally, more so still in India,
hmm,
that most of the main or important characters are written for younger women. It's very
yeah,
ageist,
yeah, yeah,
right? So
Yeah.
when you've sort of, so that is something we're still struggling with,
Hmm. Hmm.
because when you cross your 35 mark, or things like that, then the slotting is like, okay, then now you can play only these kind of roles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very, very ageist, and that happens to the biggest stars here.
Hmm. Hmm.
At one point you're like the hottest property, or the most sellable, and obviously this is absolutely more so for women than it is for men.
For men. Yeah.
But I think for younger actors now, things have really opened up. There are many interesting avenues that have really opened, and it is not only about a pretty look. It's also about whether you can act,
Hmm.
whether you fit the role, what do you bring in. So it's many things put together.
Hmm. I'm going to come to your directorial venture. I think which would probably be the most challenging, most ambitious project of your professional life. Making a film as an independent female director is not easy anywhere in the world, especially in a country like ours, in an industry like ours. So I know that haven't seen anything of the film, but whatever I've read and I've heard a couple of your interviews. It is a very poignant, it is a very powerful story of a brother and sister, and it examines then their biases, family history, their relationships, interpersonal and personal. So tell us about that experience, Tanishta. The difficulties. I know so many people watching are also your juniors from NSD, because I'm getting messages, asking me to convey their love to you and how they look up to you as an icon. Your uh, juniors from your alma mater. So tell
Right.
us about the process of Rome May. And it's not Rome May, ladies and gentlemen. It's ROAM, then ROME and May. So I just wanted, because people hearing it might think it's just a movie about Rome.
Yeah. So yeah, Rome is basically, yeah, it's shot in Rome, but it has the double punch. What in Hindi, Rome means every inch of my being. So it is about patriarchy. It's about how the main protagonist, played by Nawazuddin Siddiqui, his whole Rome was filled with a certain idea of how he should be, how his sister should be, how women should be, how his girlfriend should be, how his wife should be. And then he goes to Rome and he discovers a lot of things that was unknown to him. He actually discovers his missing sister,
Yeah.
and finds new things about her, and through that it's a coming of age for him, that he understands and realizes, and not only comes to terms, he understand. It's also sense of loss, right? So he understands how deeply rooted in patriarchy his ideas also
Hmm.
were. He
Hmm.
thought he was very different from his father, and he detested him, but he was just another blueprint of him. And that
How did
is
the
sort
story
of
come
that
to
journey.
you, Tanishta?
Yeah, so that sort of journey, that his sort of realization. So the film actually happened. Uh, the germ of it happened in Kolkata. Like Nawaz
Ah,
and I, we were shooting for Lion. Yes, and we were just generally discussing about acting and art and poetry and the kind of films that we really enjoy. And we said, hey, let's do something together. And it all started from there. And then I told him a story which I had briefly encountered something like this in Venice in one of my trips. And he thought, oh my God, this is like really interesting. Why don't we make a story like this?
hmm.
And I started writing. Initially, I never thought that I'm going to direct it. I thought that, oh, I'm going to write. And Nawaz and I will act, and we'll get a director on board, and that's how we'll do it.
Hmm.
But as I kept writing, he said to me that, Tan, it's such a weird experience. It's so personal for you. What happened in Venice? No one's going to understand. It's also quite weird.
Hmm.
So I think you should make it. And I was like, what? Like, I've never made anything. And he gave me the confidence. He actually pushed me that make this film.
Ah,
क्या है, जाके बना देंगे. I'm like,
ah.
okay. And that's how it actually happened. And like I said, like many other things in life, I love taking risks. So things were the year before that, like 2 years before that, I had this string of various different films. I had Parched, Angry Indian Goddesses, Island City, Un-Indian, Lion, like diverse, and I'm different in every. Dr. Rakhma Bai, every role was different, like Rough Book. And then I just said, okay, I'm saying no to all the acting projects, and I'm going and making this film.
Mm. Mm.
So that's how it just happened. I plunged into it, and I made it. I learned something, and it was a very beautiful experience, actually, with all my whole team and my Italian counterparts, my entire creative team. It was fantastic. I really and thoroughly enjoyed the process.
Was it hard to find funding? Was it hard to get producers to get money to make the film?
You know,
That's all questions coming in.
initially it wasn't, because it was a great idea and I got funding only on the basis of the idea. In fact, my film got preponed. I didn't even have a full script and I was about to go and shoot,
Mm.
because they said, my studio said that, listen, if you do it now, it happens, otherwise you don't never know. And Nawaz said, "Kancho, ho jayega. Kuch na kuch." I was very nervous because I was still not ready. And I
Mm.
made the film in 14 days of pre-production. But the initial phase was not difficult. But then once I finished shooting, when people realize that it's not a conventional romantic story shot in Rome,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's when funding became tough. It was
Tough.
very difficult to finish the film.
Mm. I would imagine so because whatever little I've read of the story, as I said, I have not seen even the trailer, but
Yeah,
whatever little I've read, your interviews and everything, it seems
right.
like a film which would be, again, to use that cliche term, unconventional. It's actually the story of a brother and a sister. It's not a
Yeah,
lover. It's not like a couple romancing in Rome, and it's not, right?
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, and so is it, people will think that, and it's not, and that's the thing, that it was quite a struggle to finish the film.
yeah.
And also it's not conventional in many ways. It's neither like a very art house festival oriented film which shows India in a particular way, and uh, it's it's neither Bollywood.
Hmm.
uh, it's also very surreal, the film.
Okay.
So it doesn't, you can't slot it,
You
and
can't.
therefore it was really, yeah,
Yeah. Because that's
it
what I'm saying.
is tough.
Everything in our country needs a
What
label.
what capitalism has also done,
Hmm.
like, if you look at all the OTT platforms, you will see their genres written:
Yeah.
thriller, romance, comedy. This, I'm like, I mean, what about life? Life
Yeah.
is not a genre.
Hmm.
I might go to Rome and fall in love with someone, and so it's a romantic comedy that's happening in my life, and then suddenly something else, it might turn into a thriller.
Hmm.
That's what life is.
Hmm.
So for
Absolutely.
me, that was the thing, that my film also was not slotted into. You couldn't slot, like, when I was even applying for film festivals. Even festivals have like genre. What genre is it?
Hmm.
I mean, this is like really Hollywoodization and Americanization of storytelling and cinema.
Storytelling. Hmm.
Yes. So my film actually does not fall into, it is life. It
Hmm.
is things that actually happen to him. And life is sometimes so strange.
Hmm. Yeah.
It can be so surreal.
Yeah.
Things that happen. I mean, it's uncanny. Your sixth sense sometimes is just like, I mean, many times things like that have happened to me. And when I screened Rome in New York, actually a few people came up to me and they hugged me and they said, Tan, we can't describe, like, if someone tells us, how to tell the story of your film, we won't be able to do it, because it's really a journey and a feeling. And unless you've experienced certain things which are as unexplainable, like you have shown in your film, you won't get it.
Hmm. That's
And
what.
it happened.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
happened.
No, I know because, and the comment you made about OTT is so true, because I find it like, for instance, I like everybody's telling me to watch Meera Nair's Suitable Boy. Um, and I know I won't because, I honestly, I couldn't even suffer the book. Beyond a point, the book itself was tedious to me. While it is recognized as one of Vikram Seth's best works, for me, it was tedious. It just felt like plowing, prodding on and on. And like we were discussing this, right? The moment it's a big banner, big budget, big director, everything is, the whole machinery is galvanized into action. But on the OTT platforms, I sometimes find like small hidden gems, maybe in different languages, not even Hindi or not even English, which
Yeah.
nobody's talked about, like no quote unquote well known film critic in India has even watched it or recommended it to his viewers or listeners. And you can make out that sometimes, what we are also consuming as popular culture is somebody making up our minds for us. We're seeing a film companion interview, we are reading it in Mint, we are, so we're just like everybody's talking about it on Facebook. So, we just follow that herd instinct, you know and
Right.
you're so right.
Right.
And I think so much of good like content gets lost. I mean, I remember I had this conversation with Binta on the show that I don't find Indian content on OTT platform, not all of it is really that great, you
Of
know?
course.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, I just feel there's
Not,
a
not
lot
all
of
of not all of international content is also great. Some of it
yeah,
is.
absolutely.
Not all of
Yeah,
anything is like great.
yeah,
And some of the series are also like very predictable. Like
yeah.
you get. I mean, I get bored because I feel that, oh,
Good.
now I know what's going to happen next. I know what they must have discussed in the writers' room. to so so obviously, but it's catering to
A mass.
some yeah, and these are much larger historical debates as well, like through history. If you see, at a time when the high point of culture actually happens, I think this would be a period in history where culture is at the lowest
Yeah,
across the world, all across the
yeah,
world.
yeah,
So it whenever there are like high points of culture, whether it was the Greek civilization, whether it was the golden period in India, where beautiful architecture,
correct.
music, everything involved, or the Navratna of the Mughal courts, or the Chinese civilization, anything wherever there was greatness in culture, there was somebody at the top who actually believed and who was a great and a true connoisseur of that,
Hmm.
who propagated it and who tried to uh, inculcate, teach, and make that sort of more mainstream. So I'll give you a very interesting example.
Hmm.
I was shooting a film called Chauranga in Shantiniketan,
Hmm.
and I went one of the days. I took two of my co-actors who were little boys who were playing my sons. Riddhi was one of them, Riddhi
Ah,
Sen,
he's such a good actor. He's so
and he
good.
was just like a 12-year-old, like wonder in his eyes and fabulously bright, boy. So I said, okay, listen, we are
Yeah,
now going to. He came with the script to my room. Ki, ma'am, we have to rehearse. I'm like, yes, just keep the script. Let us go out. And
yeah,
he looked at me like, yes. I said, yeah. So I'm your mom, and I'm going to take you out to the museums of Shantiniketan. Let's take a rickshaw. And they were thrilled. So we just took a rickshaw, a cycle rickshaw, and we traveled all around Shantiniketan. We went to the Tagore Museum. We went to his house, and all the touristic things we did. Then at one point, our rickshaw wala, it took us towards Amartya Sen's bungalow. And he
Bangalore.
told us, Amartya Sen's bungalow. Do you know who he is? And he explained to me who he is. I laughed and I was like, okay. And what has he actually done? I'm like, wow, okay. You know that? And
Hmm.
yeah, it's hearsay here. Then he took me to another place and he explained to me about Tagore's friendship with Yeats
Yes.
and the kind of poetic the relationship that they shared, and the fact that the world wouldn't have understood Tagore if not for Yeats.
Yeah.
I was like, why are you riding a rickshaw? What's wrong with you? Like, you must be. He's like, no, no, I'm a school dropout. It's hearsay here. Everybody knows these things.
Hmm.
My point is, that's pop culture in Shantiniketan.
Hmm.
Right? So pop culture, and this whole idea, it has to be lowest common denominator. I think that's extremely elitist and very, very arrogant, and it's a laziness on the part of like creators and us saying that, oh, you
Hmm.
know what, just dumb it down and make it like trashy because most people will get that, and it's not true. So the people who are the creators, the onus is actually on them. The onus is not on the public, because culture is something that you're bringing up that child right from your childhood. So it's not that they're choosing it. It is not a choice. It's
Hmm.
that is what language and culture is. How will you understand a German joke if you don't understand German?
Correct.
So how do you learn that? You learn it right from your childhood. So you would
Yeah.
appreciate Pathir Pachali, or Ashgar Farhadi film, or Picasso's painting, or Murakami novel. If you're not exposed to that from your teenage times, or
Hmm.
that is culture, because there
Hmm.
is a language. How would you understand coding if you don't know it? It'll be
Correct.
alien, it'll be boring to you.
Yeah.
And some people have no interest in certain games, like I have no interest in golf because I don't understand it. That doesn't mean that I'll if you understand, you will get hooked onto it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's really, culture is that. And
Hmm.
there it is, the onus is actually on education, the onus is on creators of culture, onus is on leaders, that how do you alleviate the cultural context of the society.
Hmm.
And that's where throughout history we have seen dark ages and golden eras of every
Yeah.
civilization.
Yeah.
The civilizational dark ages is not economic, it's cultural. It's
Hmm.
always cultural, because
Well,
that
I
leads to
think,
violence, that leads to intolerance, that leads to discourses which are very, very so far removed from nuances, and uh, that those are the dark ages. It's not economics is never the factor. The Roman civilization had great economics at one point of time, but it never matched the Greeks, because
hmm.
culturally, obviously, the Greeks were the Greeks.
Hmm. So I agree with
So
you. I agree with you. And I feel personally that, what we're seeing today in so many ways is really an assault on our culture. Because this is not the culture of my country. This is not the culture of the oldest religion in the world. Hatred,
yes,
toxicity, religious intolerance, beating up, mob lynching, killing. This is not the culture of this ancient civilization, that women are
absolutely.
being shot at in broad daylight, and a woman, because she was out at 9 o'clock, she deserves to be raped. And khap panchayats really deciding the fate of a woman's love affair, that if she loves somebody out of caste, then you just catch her, murder her in a paddy field, and burn her body, cut off her tongue, like we saw in the Hathras incident. So I think, I feel very despondent today, Tanishta, and we've talked about this one on one. When we see the culture, I don't know, because this word culture is also used so loosely that somewhere I think we don't know what it means.
Yeah.
Because when the Tanishq ad, for instance, was withdrawn, the people who were against it said this is not our culture. It's bringing up love jihad. But for me, I mean, we are the
Bringing
land
up
of
compassionate love.
eroticism and Kama Sutra.
Compassionate love is our culture. It should be our
Yeah,
culture. If it is
yeah,
not, then it should be.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm completely with you that this great civilization, where, I mean, I when you see the I have a lot of debates with many of my friends when they say that the British have destroyed our culture. I'm like, yeah, of course I agree. We are speaking in English, we are expressing ourselves, but it actually goes beyond that. I'm like, what is culture? Like, how many of you actually understand Hindustani classical music? How many
exactly.
of you actually go to a Bharatnatyam recital or an Odissi recital or understand anything of Kathakali? You haven't even heard about it.
Hmm.
I know my friends, they don't even know what Kathakali is or there's something like that exists. I'm
Yeah,
like, have you ever been to Ajanta Ellora?
yeah.
Have you ever seen what Ellora Kailashnath temple is the biggest monolithic structure in the world, and
Hmm.
people go and pee there. This is the respect we have for our religion
Yeah,
and our culture.
yeah,
It's so stunning. It's so beautiful. You go to France for your holidays, but you've never been to Ellora Kailashnath temple.
yeah,
You've never
yeah.
discovered your own country. And
Hmm.
what culture are you teaching me?
Hmm.
You don't teach me culture. I'm very rooted in my culture.
Hmm.
So the thing is, and my culture and my also being, the beauty of our country and our faith. I wouldn't even call it religion,
Yeah,
because we are different. We were not like the other Abrahamic religions, where it's like a mono, like sort of a thing. One God, one. We were so diverse. You believe in Kali, आप काली की वर्शिप कर लो. You believe in Durga, you do that. You are a Shaivat, आप शिवा, you believe in Shiv. You believe in Vishnu. Whoever believes in whatever was allowed, like you worship whoever you want. It's the
hmm.
most beautiful, liberating feeling.
Hmm.
And it's not like one prophet or somebody, who you're worshiping. It's like we all have our own faiths.
Hmm.
That's how diverse it is.
Right, right.
Not this mono idea that only one thing. No.
Hmm.
And that is the beauty. And I don't want to kill it. Like, this is actually making it like the Abrahamic religions, which
Hmm.
we are very different from that. I mean, I was always proud to be, belonging to this nation and this culture, because it allows so much space.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
I
it is
completely.
actually so individualistic in that sense.
Hmm. That's true. And in fact, remember Ramakrishna's famous Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He said that beautiful line by him where somebody once asked him that, how do you worship Kali? Is there a
Yeah.
way? And Ramakrishna Dev said, Joto mot toto pot. You know, however
Exactly.
many, however you want to approach your relationship with your maker is a personal space. As many
Yes.
paths, as many thoughts, as many ways of approaching the divine, and unity in diversity, which was one of the tenets of our constitution as well. Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, I mean, I agree. In fact, today, my sister, who's 11 years old, was very excited celebrating Halloween. And because, they are fed up on an American diet of Maleficent and Descendants and, all this OTT kind of Disney kind of thing, they're all into Halloween. And I was telling my sister that, do you know, when we were young, the only spooky thing that we had before Kali Puja was something called Bhoot Chaturdashi. When we lit 14 candles, because we had to sort of keep the evil spirits out, and we used to have choddo shag, 14 varieties of sag which you're supposed to have. And down south they celebrate that day as Naraga Chaturdasi. So I told her,
Exactly.
we have our own Halloween in India, but there's no excitement about it because Indian parents want to Americanize their children. We're giving them Zara clothes and Gap clothes and the phone and the Disney
So
Hotstar and
actually yeah, it's this superficial West toxification, right? So
yeah,
the thing is, we want to retain our culture by reinserting some really silly prejudices, but on the
yeah.
surface, we know nothing about our culture, and we actually don't want to retain our culture.
We don't want to. Yeah, yeah,
So the thing is that this is really West toxified and a superficial identity struggle.
yeah.
Um, the thing is
I
that
think we are
I think,
suffering an
yeah,
identity crisis. I feel
yes.
that.
And the beauty of India was that we never had an identity crisis.
No. Yeah.
We, we were so confident in our culture that we
Mm,
embraced everything that was coming, which actually
mm.
always made us richer and richer.
Right.
Because
Right.
cultural diversity makes a culture richer. The unification of all these different things, and you can see that in our clothes, our food, our music. I mean, through ages, all these different elements that came and amalgamated, and so many interesting things really happened. It only enriched our culture.
Right, right.
Just the protecting something will always make it less
Hmm.
and always make it narrow. And that was
Yeah,
the beauty of this country that we embraced.
yeah. That's true.
And
That's true.
yeah, the richness sort of, goes because of embracing all that.
Yeah. So, well, I think we've had a serious adda so far, but now moving on to sort of the single life, so to speak, because the show is on single women and this is the finale episode. So we're so excited that you're here. You know what? When I wanted to host you as the guest for the 10th episode of season 2, one of the reasons for me to choose you, apart from your professional achievements and other things that I'll shortly talk about, your single parenting, for instance, was also the fact that you're single by choice, which I find extremely liberating and empowering at the same time. I remember once somebody on this show, I think I had Mona Ambegaunkar or Anjali Bhushan, I think, and there were a couple of comments, which came to me, which said, is there any, are these women single by choice? Because they were divorced, or, somebody is a single unwed mother. Is really anybody single by choice? These are a lot of the women that you're bringing on the show are single by circumstance. They've been widowed or they're divorced, or, so you're single by choice. But is any woman in India actually single by choice, or is it only circumstance? Because women all want to get married and, they.
No, no, no. I think a lot of women are. I think a lot of women are single by choice because we get
Exactly,
bored. Like
exactly.
I told
Yeah.
you, I get bored. So I cannot think of like having a lifelong commitment. Oh my God, no, no. Especially with men because I love men. I love hot men and I like to date. I get attracted towards them. I get attracted towards them left, right, center. So I don't want, and a lot of my ex-boyfriends are really, most of them are my friends. I'm friends with them. I have a wonderful, cordial relationship. Our breakup has always been like mutually respectful and really wonderful. And many of those men in my life have always said, "Oh, Tan, like we know you can't commit."
Hmm.
And it's not that I'm commitment phobic or anything. It's just that I like to explore new people. I
Hmm.
get attracted towards people, so I don't want to hurt anyone by saying, by cheating. And so I'm like, listen, it's cool, it's nice, it's like this. And
Hmm.
therefore those friendships are like lifelong. They're so valuable because to be
Hmm.
very honest, like sex after a point, it's the same,
Yeah.
right? And as an artist, as a human being, you should always enjoy sex, and it has to be new all
Yeah.
the time. So that has been my philosophy, for most part of my life. And so yes, absolutely single by choice.
So I think a lot of people don't know this about you, Tanishta. In fact, I must be honest, I didn't know this about you too, that you're divorced. And just today in the evening, as I was getting ready, a community member and also a woman who I look up to, she was on season 1 in Bangalore, wrote very beautifully about her partner, her ex-husband, and put up a wonderful picture of them on their wedding day. During the Mala Bodul, it was a Bengali traditional religious wedding, and said that, while we decided to part as husband and wife, we've remained good friends with each other. We are a part of each other's families. She spoke about her husband, how he had been like almost a son to her parents, her late father, and now her mother. And she said, the vows that we took, we maintain them as good friends. How as friends also you're with somebody for life, in sickness and health, in good and bad. So, I think something that is a very powerful message, because, a lot of women, Tanishta, in the community that I run, are in a sense scared to break out of marriages which are dead physically, emotionally. Of course, there are those marriages also which are rampant with abuse or cheating, or there's a lot of verbal sort of violence in those marriages. Women are scared to become single again, because one of the reasons why I do the show, or I wrote the book, or I founded the community, was to talk about inclusivity of single people. You know that in India, the stereotypical image is the heteronormative family. So it's the couple, the husband, the wife, the child, the nana nani, dada dadi, the kutta, and the house. And that
Right.
the barjatiya family, hum saath hai, that family. But I think today, because we are 74 million single women, who are 39% of the population of India, things are
Wow.
changing.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
huge.
So
I
applause
think
to us.
a lot of us are single by choice. And I mean,
Yeah,
I've been some stuff that has been forwarded to me that actually single women are happier.
yeah. There was
They,
a study. This is a study.
yes, yes, because it's just less stressful,
Yeah,
and it's also romance, and falling in love each time gives you youth and energy and beauty, and and if I mean, that's my philosophy. If you're in a committed relationship for a very long time, then it's just like another drag.
drudgery.
um I never saw myself ever, like right from a very young age, do that.
Hmm. So was that tough to navigate though? Because was that seen as a character flaw? Because women are so easily persecuted as being slutty or fast or bitchy or aggressive or too demanding or polyamorous. And our perception is that men want to flit from one woman to the other, but women are very commitment oriented.
I
Every
mean, that,
woman wants a ring on her finger. But
oh
look,
no,
that's a myth.
yeah, yeah, I don't think that's true at all. I've always had the reverse experience, sorry, in my life, that many men actually wanted to settle in with me, and I said, "Oh my God, I love you, but I love so many others." And most of them are my friends, because I've always been upfront and honest. And of course, it has taken a little time for me to realize this, that a few years is my threshold, and then I just get bored,
Hmm.
and I meet new people and I get attracted towards them, and I'm like, look, this I mean, it's not a crime that I'm committing. I'm
Hmm.
being honest. I don't want to
Yeah.
cheat. And I think uh, uh, cheating is something that I have moral issues about,
Yeah. 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 Me
because
too.
I
I
think
feel the
it's
same.
fraud. It's like it's committing fraud.
Yeah.
So I don't want to continue being in a relationship where I am cheating, whether
Hmm.
whichever, like So I'm not lying. I'm not being dishonest.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think, therefore, to have that life where you're not guilty of doing something which is, I think, totally morally wrong. If
Hmm.
somebody commits a fraud with money, and
Hmm.
is called a scamster, and what is it? It's cheating and lying, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I think, with emotions also, that's absolutely there. So
Correct.
I'm very strong with my moral views,
Right.
when it comes.
Right.
But
Right.
having said all that, I don't judge men or women who love the opposite sex or the same sex or both, in
Hmm.
terms of their preferences and romantic relationships, or even one night flings. Whatever it is, it's their choice. As long as they are honest about it, it's their life and it's their
Hmm.
individual choice. And there are people who are like that. There are
Hmm.
people who actually want to remain individualistic and remain, don't want to hurt people, and are very, and I find that extremely honest. I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
double standard
I
where
agree.
you want to remain in a committed relationship, and yet, like, I've seen most marriages after 20 years. Come on, give me a
Yeah.
break.
Actually,
Sex is
20 years, 20 years is a very
yes.
ambitious deadline in today's world.
It's
20
10
years
years.
is too
10
much,
years. 10
Tanisha.
years. Yeah, 10 years. I've heard so many of
10
my friends
years,
say,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, you've not been like, in a committed relationship for that long. It's after 10 years of these things happen. I'm like, dude, like, I think that's like dishonest. No, but the kids and all involved, which I understand. I understand. So it's just human. And
Hmm.
I'm just saying, yeah, that's human. It happens to everybody. People admit it or people don't.
Yeah, that's true. When you came to Bombay as a single woman, you're still a single woman. You had a short marriage which ended amicably, and you bought yourself two apartments in Maximum City. Like you said, you moved from a smaller to a larger apartment in the course of your life in Bombay. We
Right,
hear a lot about housing discrimination, Tanishta, for single women. In fact, I
right,
was telling you about this brilliant documentary on Netflix called Bachelor Girls, which is about the biases and the prejudices that women in Bombay, which is a so called cosmopolitan city, financial entertainment capital of India, they face, because, of the virtue of being single. Now, you're a home owner, which I think is so cool, women owning their own homes. I think really for me, I find that so inspiring. You said that you hadn't really faced any such discrimination, only much earlier on, but you had a man friend who was wanting to, move in as
yes.
a. So tell us that story. Tell our listeners that
So
story.
yeah, so basically, it's about single people. It's not only about
People.
single
Yeah.
women. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of societies are very sort of moralistic about single people, and they think that, oh, they are sort of fallen people and they are having
Yeah.
parties.
Promiscuous.
Yeah, exactly. So in the society that I used to live before, which was actually quite a progressive, nice, very mixed sort of society, and yet there was a friend of mine. He's from Germany. He rented a place, and he told me that, would you introduce me to your society? My landlord has, but they just want. I told them that I know you, so would you actually tell them that I'm a good guy and I'll be fine? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I went there, and then they told me in हिंदी कि इनको प्लीज ये बता देना कि रात के 9 बजे के बाद कोई फीमेल फ्रेंड नहीं आना चाहिए.
Oh.
I was like, okay, band, yeah, like whatever you need to do with women in your apartment has to be before 9 o'clock if you want to have sex with them. And my society secretary was looking at me like this. He didn't know whether to laugh. And so he's like, मैंने ऐसा कब कहा? I said, what does it mean? कि आप यही कहना चाहते हो ना?
Huh.
तो ये मतलब कौन सा रूल है कि 9 बजे के बाद नहीं हो सकता? I mean, you can say that yes, आप रात के 10 बजे के बाद पार्टी नहीं कर सकते, लाउड म्यूजिक नहीं बजा सकते,
Music. Huh.
you can't keep crackers, you can't get drunk and throw up on the stairs in common areas. I totally understand that, but that has nothing to do with single. Families also do that. रात के
Yeah.
12 बजे तक ढंग 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 म्यूजिक चल रहा है,
Oh,
I get
wow.
irritated.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that is civil, sort of responsibility, that you have to be cordial and considerate towards your neighbors. Of course, you should tell him about all those rules. But what he's doing quietly inside his
Home.
room, as long it's not like some illegal activity, he's not
Mm.
smuggling goods or drugs or anything like that. It's his, why, what is this moral policing? And then, of course, there were two other people who also belong to the film industry. Said, no, please, no moral policing, please.
Mm.
But it is his discretion, वो किसको लेके आएगा, क्या करेगा, as long as he's not disturbing anybody else.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah, I mean, of course, it's about single men and women.
yeah, I think there is see, that's what I'm saying, that single people, and here I include men also, there is a marginalization which happens, and that's, I think, somewhere to do with our conditioning, because we assume, and that's the majority, right? The heteronormative family, the couple, the
Right,
idea of coupledom as an avenue to completion. So
right,
women are, for instance, the goddess. Like the other day, a researcher got in touch with me from IIT, and she's doing a
right.
research paper where she's featuring Statussingle, and she said, Shrimoy, my research, I'm going to talk about how in India there are very few goddesses who are single. Or even
Yeah,
in mythology, like if you take a Supranakha, whose nose was cut off, when she expressed desire towards, Lakshman, who was married, who was a king, who was of a higher
yeah,
caste. and she was
Yeah.
the sister of an asura. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even Ahalya, who had to pay the price for illicit desire. So I think
Yeah.
there is a marginalization and a sort of silencing of the single people population in India.
Yeah.
I do think that that is the reality.
No, of course, because it is again, sort of, family values and that
Yeah.
moral structure, the taboo of talking about sex, because
Yeah.
that's also sort of correlated to sex and sexual freedom and, all those ideas, because the
Yeah.
single means that it doesn't always, the thing is that that's not always true, that it's not that just because you're single, you're like sleeping with someone every night. Doesn't
Yeah.
happen like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
I'm celibate for years, even though I'm
Yeah.
single, because you
Yeah.
just don't feel, it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so the single by choice is not only about sex, it is also about just not wanting to be tied emotionally as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
there is a very different emotional, like some people might find that like an anchor, but I find that a burden,
Hmm.
and that's a very individualistic choice.
Yeah, absolutely. But now I'm
There's
going
a
to talk about. Yeah, I know,
you
I
know
know, I
you're
hear you.
I wouldn't just say that, okay, then listen, I want to pack my bags and go to Rome and make this film.
Yeah, yeah. You can't do that if you have a family. You can't. Of course you
So
can't. And especially
I
women.
see, I know a lot of single women who are single by choice. I know a
Hmm.
lot of them. So I think that's a very sort of old fashioned idea. Oh, I have a sad story. I was abused, and men didn't treat me well in my life. Men treated me very well in my life. I love them, but it's single by choice. I have absolutely full respect and love and attraction and everything for them.
That's lovely. That's lovely.
Yeah.
And, in the final part of the show, I'm going to talk about what I think is one of the most important and precious parts of your life, your daughter, Radhika, who celebrates her birthday on Monday. So, all my love and blessings and good wishes for your little one.
Thank
Tell
you.
us about your journey of single parenting. So many women today, when we were talking about patriarchy earlier, Tanishta, I just wanted to tell you that women like you have actually busted, broken, shattered the last bastion of patriarchy by taking parenthood into your own hands. I'm not
Yeah.
going to say motherhood, parenting.
Parenting, yeah.
You know,
I'm
parenting.
everything. Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
so tell us about Radhika's story and how she found you, because we foster a girl, and I'm always said, oh, uh, they talk about my sister Srilekha, who's 11, and they say Srilekha is so lucky that she found your family. And I always turn the trajectory around and I say, no, actually it works both ways. We are lucky that she found us. It's not
Yes,
just her, us finding her. So I think a child chooses her mother, and I can see little Radhika's reflection in the mirror. So it's so
yes.
beautiful, this
Literally,
moment.
and her birthday and everything.
Ah,
So
there she is. Yeah.
it's been talked about. So the thing is that I mean, again, like single by choice, single mother by choice. From a very young age, I always knew that if I have a child, it'll always be I'll always adopt
Adopt.
from a very young age. And when I used to say this when I was very young, like my family, and then they would like joke, "Oh, she's very young and she just says things like this." But as I grew older, that idea actually got more and more and more reaffirmed.
Embedded. Hmm.
Absolutely. And then there came a point where I just felt that, I can just keep thinking about it and talking about it, or I have to just go ahead and do it.
Hmm.
And unless you take the plunge, it'll never happen. And obviously, who says it's easy? It's not. Nothing is easy.
Hmm.
But if I have always thought like this, then let me just do it.
Hmm.
So Radhika, no, okay, now you go to that other room. Sorry.
No problem.
So uh, and again, there were certain questions again my parents had. They said, child is not a child's play. You can see we are still a parent to both of you.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
"Ah, it's a lifelong thing. You can become 40 years old. You're still a, you're, I mean, for my mother, I'm still a child.
exactly.
So it's really a lifelong commitment, and it's eternal parenting. And I understand that it's not that when you're 20 now you become independent and you get lost. No,
Mm.
it's a lifelong commitment. It's not easy. There'll be ups and downs. It'll be, but I've always wanted to do it. This is one thing I wanted to do right from a very young age, when I was 12, 13. So I discussed it with them. They were they told me it's going to be tough, but again, they were very supportive, and they said, okay, fine, uh, yeah. And then after that, it was actually the procedure and everything was like pretty simple, I would say. And I didn't know that actually Kara is like such a
Yeah,
wonderful institute. The
yeah,
way everything is streamlined and their whole process is really, really nice. The way everything is done, and they actually give a lot of preference to single women,
yeah.
especially when you have a girl child.
Exactly, exactly. So,
So
what about her school and stuff, Tanishta? Did you feel that there was a lot of acceptance? There's a growing acceptance of single parenting now, because so many women are even buying sperms and having children via IVF.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So as
No,
I
no,
said, we busted the
I
last
think it's
bastion.
yeah, I think it's pretty cool. No one ever like sort of asks this question. It's like she's just like uh, any other, and also any other student. And there are different kinds of families. Like my family has me, and my parents live close by, like just 5 minutes walking from my place. So our family is grandparents, mother, and a child. There are other
Hmm.
families which is just parents and a child. There are other families which is I hope, like, gay couples, everybody is able
Yeah,
to sort of, there are all kinds of parenting
yeah,
that
yeah,
it's just that. And family also doesn't mean mother, father, child. That's all family.
hmm,
The idea of family is also, I think, changing. It could be friends and a child,
hmm,
a mother with
yeah,
some friends and a child. But that's the close knit family,
hmm,
right? So I also feel that, the school also she goes to is quite nice. And they're very, very inclusive. And there are people from all kinds of sort of,
hmm.
families. And I have another very close friend here who actually is a single mother and chose to be a biological single mother, like you said,
Right.
with sperm donor. And so it's not as rare as it
Hmm.
used to be. Within my film world, I know two, three people who have actually also gone in for adoption rather than having biological children.
Hmm.
And so, and two of them are single mothers again.
Hmm.
There
Hmm.
are a lot of people who are choosing to do it. So it's
Yeah.
not that accessible anymore.
Yeah, and I think single parenting is now becoming also something by choice, where you chose to adopt. It's not
Right.
only divorced people being single parents, or widows being single mothers. As I said, according to me, women like you have busted that final threshold of patriarchy, and even the model of a family is patriarchal. Mummy, daddy, nana, nani, that is changing now, because with section 377 decriminalized, I know of
Yeah.
so many same sex couples who are looking at adoption. It's not easy, but they want
Yeah.
to adopt. They are looking at fostering, which is
Right.
a relatively ambiguous concept in India, but it is coming up. Like we do it, and I talk about it to create awareness. So that's great. And I think, Tanishka, because it's Radhika's birthday on Monday, what is your dream for women in this country? What is your dream for single women in this country? Where do you see us going? You've been single by choice. You've acted in films with very, very strong women characters. I think the stories that you've told have also defined your life in a way, and the way you choose to live and who you are as a person. What would be your dream for women in India?
I think, yeah, it's like whether single or not single. I think for me, the dream is that, we get to choose,
Hmm.
that we get to choose the lives that we want
Hmm.
and what we want to do and how we want to live, and not care about judgments.
Hmm.
Whether I want to go out and buy a bottle of wine at 10 o'clock in the night, whether I want to wear shorts or I want to wear a sari, neither of it should be judged. And whether I am an artist and yet I don't want to smoke up and, remain like, actually want to drink green tea, that also should not be judged. Either
Hmm.
ways.
Hmm. Hmm.
So actually the reverse thing also happens, like, especially even in the creative industry,
Hmm.
that, you're a woman, and if you have a certain discipline in life and, you don't drink, like I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke a cigarette, I don't smoke up, I've never done any of those things. So there's a
Hmm.
reverse judgment that if you are like that, which means you are actually in a set pattern of that valued woman, and you're not freeing yourself, and therefore you
Okay.
cannot be an artist, because, the only way to freedom is to wear shorts, go to the wine shop and drink, and so both the judgments should not be there, whether I'm doing
Yeah.
this or, and because I'm a woman, I have to only break free by doing those things, is also, I think, a ridiculous pressure and judgment. And that is another thing that I see on a lot of young women, that,
Hmm.
I want to be cool, I want to break free, and I want to be like rebellious, means I smoke. It's a choice, I'm not judging that, but both the judgments should not be there.
It's so
But
interesting
like,
that you say this.
that's what I
It is,
feel for women.
that's so interesting that you say this, and I must put this on the table that recently I was doing a session with a group of college students, young women, and we were talking about consent, which is so critical, I think, in the life of a woman, be it personally
Yes.
or professionally. And most of them have had sexual experiences bound by peer pressure. Most of them
That's
have had unprotected sex because the men did not want to use condoms. And, just, they've popped the eye pill the next morning. Women have also had abortions. Which were blotched up because abortion, while it's legal, again, that's a discrimination that single women face in this country, in the medical profession, where medical treatment is denied to them by judgmental doctors, right? And when I was asking them that, they said, no, the pressure of virginity is too much on us. Because
Yeah.
before our parents get us married, we have to lose our virginity.
Yeah. So the so
Yeah,
coolness and freedom
cool.
again is not, it's about your choice.
Yeah,
It's and that's one thing that I again felt, because that's again a patriarchal idea of,
yeah,
if I see that in the creative industry, this idea comes from men, that if you have to be a free woman, you have to do all these things. Come on,
yeah,
otherwise you're like bound. You're too stuck
yeah,
up. Like, what's going
yeah,
on? I will free
yeah,
you. I'm like, dude, I don't want you to free me. I'm free in my thoughts,
yeah,
and that's my choice, that I don't
yeah,
want to smoke up with you. I don't like drinking alcohol till like 2 o'clock in the morning every day.
yeah.
That's not my life. I would rather go back home and read a book or watch a film and listen to music.
Hmm.
That's, oh come on, तुम बहुत सात्विक लड़की हो, ये मैंने बहुत सुना है.
सात्विक लड़की, संस्कारी,
सात्विक, या संस्कारी
संस्कारी
नहीं,
तरीका.
यार तुम तो बहुत सात्विक लड़की हो. हाँ. So the thing is, but that so the choice, so the other extreme, of also breaking free, is also a patriarchal pressure. And
Yeah,
actually in creative fields, we actually constantly get that. It's
yeah.
so funny. Don't
No,
be
I hear
sanskar.
you. No, I hear you because I don't do these things either. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I have never smoked up. While I studied in Jadavpur University, where ganja was very common, but I could not tolerate the stench of weed. So
So
for
the thing
me,
is that that extreme. So the thing is that, like, for me, that is my dream for the future of women, is that you choose whatever you want, and it
Mm,
shouldn't be this way or that way.
mm,
I absolutely no judgments whether that's breaking free is actually about those choices. I think I have lived a life which is absolutely my choice. I'm a single mother. I have never committed to any relationship. I've also, in my profession, I haven't committed to things. I've jumped from one thing to the other because that's what I want to do. I've taken risks left, right, center constantly, and that is what freedom is all about. And that's what a powerful individual is, whether a man or a woman. That I have the power to choose,
yeah,
and
yeah,
it's not superficial things.
yeah.
So,
No, it's true. And in fact,
yeah.
the great poet said, "Where the mind is without fear, and the head
And
is
the
held high."
when
Right?
knowledge
So
is
exactly, into that heaven of freedom, my father, let my country awake. These are the words of, Kobi Guru. And, because you mentioned your trip to Shantiniketan, I just, I had that visual.
yeah, we should.
Professionally, Tanishta, what's on the scorecard for you? Any more directorial ventures? Where can
No,
when can we see you next?
right now, I think I would like to act a little, and there are a few things that are coming up. I'm writing some stuff. Everything is also quite up in the air because of the COVID
Yeah,
situation. So
yeah.
everything is getting pushed, and it's very uncertain. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what will
Lovely.
materialize and what will actually happen. Yeah, yeah, which
Isn't
is
that
okay.
also the beauty of life, the unknown, the unpredictability? I think a restless creative soul like you would thrive on that. I mean,
And yeah,
if
I think something wonderful and something beautiful will come out of it.
yes, yes, I do hope so, Tanishka. You said a beautiful thing at the start of the show, that life is not generic. I
Yeah.
think really that captures the spirit of the Women Who Inspire Me series, because we've had women who are single, either circumstantially or by choice. But they have been the mistresses of their own decisions, you know,
Right.
and they have stood by their life choices, which I think is the power of this community, which is 74.1 million strong. And
It's
like
fantastic.
I keep, it's fantastic, and like I keep
We
saying
should
that,
support each
um,
other in the community now. We should
yeah.
really
So
gain each other's strength.
yes, we have to do that. And I think, when I was speaking to younger women, what I realized is, so many of them want to remain single by choice, like you, like
Yeah,
me, probably to a certain extent. But that pressure of culture, again, quote unquote, I'm saying that, punning it a bit, the pressure of peers, of getting a boyfriend who will then marry you, and then the pressure of being slim, fair, beautiful, so that a man marries you and impregnates you and has a child. I think, what I find so beautiful about this community of single women is that what we've proved, and I hope, I know a lot of people are watching who have watched all 10 episodes of this season, and we've had women of all age groups. We've had Srila Das Gupta, who is a diversity and inclusion expert. She's a woman who, is in a wheelchair. We've had Raki Lalwani before you on the last show, who, is a huge corporate honcho, a cancer survivor, a caregiver to her aging parents, and a terminally ill brother. We've had Vinta Nanda speak about, sexual harassment professionally. We've had Anjali Bhushan talk about, divorce, amicable separations, talk about owning your own strength. Women as filmmakers, as independent creative people. We've had Kamla Bhasin ji talk about mental health, being a caregiver, as a single mother, losing her child to the shadows of schizophrenia. We've had Dr. Malika Sarabhai once again. talk about being a single mother, being an independent artist. We've had Mona Ambegaunkar talk about, again, being a woman who's past a certain age in acting and ageism, plus single motherhood. And you, I think I've been blessed to have all of you on this show, because you show to the world that there is not just that one face of a single woman.
Yeah.
There are so many
Absolutely.
faces.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
74 point, like, Ravan had all those faces, like Madhura has all those hands. I think our community has so much character because of the diversity. And really, this is the culture of India: the syncretism, the cultural fluidity, the sexual autonomy, that we should once again reimagine and repossess. And Tanisha, I thank you for coming on this show, for being
Absolutely.
so generous, sharing your story, your struggles. And if there is a message that you'd like to, I know message is cliched, but like I said, today the energy is so right. We have the blue moon. It's Halloween for my little sister. It's Kali Pujo soon. One of my favorite angry Indian goddesses, quote unquote, Ma Kali. So, if you can leave us with a beautiful remark to sum up the spirit of the show.
I think, like when you began, you just said that many of us are actually spiritual in that sense, and life is actually what happens to us while we are planning things. So I
Yeah,
actually don't plan, and I don't take life that seriously. And I think that's why one can move on, and nothing seems to be that heavy and serious, because we are just nothing,
yeah,
in the scheme of this huge unlimited universe. We're just nothing.
right,
So I think it's not a message, but I think the world will become a far more uh, beautiful, less stressed place if we take ourselves less seriously.
right, right, right.
It's not everything is too heavy and too, like, sort of, even when we're talking about patriarchy or feminism, or the way to actually break free is actually to do it. That's all. We
Mm,
can keep talking about things. We have to
mm,
just go out there and live our own lives. And I feel I mean, for men or women, I mean, I think there is no gender difference, or single or not single, is not to take it seriously. At least that's what I have learned in my journey of this little life that I've lived now.
right.
It's
So to
just
hell
that
with
one
the
moment.
label,
And I
yeah,
think
to hell with the label.
acting as a profession teaches you that. It's a very spiritual practice.
Mm,
You live
mm,
that moment, you're truthful, you absorb it, and then you go to the next truth, which is also your truth.
mm, mm.
And it's only
I
there
think
for that moment.
it's only
And
there for
tomorrow,
that moment.
yes,
Yeah,
nothing lasts forever, and we keep clinging on to something which happened, which will never come back,
mm,
something which might happen, which we don't know. We didn't know there'll be COVID, and we'll all be under lockdown, and everything is so uncertain.
right.
So uh, it's living the moment,
Yeah,
and
I think
and
really
therefore status single as well. It's living the moment.
it's living the moment. It's living the moment with dignity. It's living the
Yes,
moment with a lot of self love and self care. Like I said, that, we are our own validation. And, Kamla Bhasin, who was my guest, my beloved guest, like you are, on the first show in the month of September, which is really the season of the goddess. We've had 10 Indian goddesses, I think, for my show. And she said a beautiful thing, Tanishta, which I will use as my concluding remark, where she said, how do you define single? I live with my son who's 40. He's a paraplegic. I'm in my, mid 70s. I'm 74. I'm a divorced, now a widowed lady. I have buried a daughter, but I have a larger family. My domestic help, who are my house staff, are also my family, and their children are my grandchildren. I foster them like you foster your little sister. So you are complete. You don't need a
Yes.
husband and a child to
I
be the family.
that's a beautiful way to conclude. How do you define
Yeah,
single? Like
yeah.
not
How do
only
you
being in a
define single?
relationship, yes,
Exactly.
is
So, all of us are plural. I think we exist in others. We exist in this diversity and this cauldron and, this uncertainty, these ripples of life. So, thank you,
absolutely.
Tanishta, for, reiterating
Absolute
that
pleasure. Lovely,
it was a
lovely,
complete pleasure. Lovely.
wonderful answer.
More power.
Yes.
More power
Thank
to single women like us. More power
more.
to Generation Next, like Radhika, like my sister. My sister says that I want to start a community, Girls Without Fathers. And it'll have adopted children. It'll have, parents parents who've divorced. It'll have widowed mothers and their daughters. So who knows? Maybe the second wave of status single will be our
Yes.
daughters and our sons. So it's lovely. Thank you so much, my viewers, who've been such a wonderful audience for the last 2 months and the 4 months prior to that. We've had two such successful seasons. I'm already getting messages. Will there be a season three? We'll have to wait and watch for that. I hope to bring back a season three, talking about things which are close to my heart with people like Tanishta who are close to my heart. So, good luck to all of you. Stay safe. Many birthday wishes to Radhika and her mommy and her grandparents, the proud grandparents. Lots of love. Take care. Good night. Bye.
Good night. Thank you. Bye. Absolute
Bye,
pleasure.
Tanishta. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.